Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to take a spoiler-free look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 81. Now, for most Kaiju number 8 chapters, they read fast, and I genuinely could not believe that this was a full 23-page manga chapter when I read through this. It just went so fast. This will be a spoiler-free section, so you don't have to worry about clicking away, but if you want to, you can go get a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, Short Absurd Science Fiction, and click below the link. Now, again, spoiler-free section. Let me tell you about Kaiju number 9's big mistake. Now, let's talk about pandas, flightless parrots, and the Crater Lake newt. So the panda bear, we all know that. It's one of the probably the most famous animal in the world. It's not a bear. It's got that distinctive black and white coloring. It is probably the cutest animal in the world in its adult phase. And there's an entire industry around just how cute the babies are. And of course, it nearly went extinct. Why did the panda nearly go extinct? Because it over-specialized. Panda bears can only eat one type of food, really, in the wild, bamboo shoots. They need a lot of land, and they're very sensitive to stress. This makes them highly, highly sensitive to any changes in the environments. If humans 100% were not a factor, the panda would still be a fragile species prone to going extinct because they are dependent on one type of food, because they are too specialized. Because if anything ever happens to the kind of bamboo that they eat, they're goners. Most other animals, most successful animals, can eat a wide variety of food sources. They're generalists. Even if they're herbivores or carnivores, they can eat different types of food. Whereas the panda bear, because it's restricted to that one type of bamboo, 1 or 2 bad years in the bamboo forest, like 1 or 2 parasites going through, and no more panda bears. So the panda bear, even though it's amazing and cute and adorable and actually pretty tanky, really good at falling out of trees, it's just not that stable. Now, then we have certain flightless parrots that live on islands. They specialize to be flightless, and they grew bigger, and so they needed to eat more. So they traded off flight for size, and they have to eat a lot. Now these parrots, these flightless parrots, they are extremely limited in what they eat, to the point where there's really only one kind of grass that they can eat, and it's even worse for them than the pandas, because it's only a part of that grass that they can eat. They are too specialized. There was a certain environment that they were in, and they became entirely dependent on one food source, and they altered their body to maximize the use of that food source. And because there's been a change, now they're on the verge of extinction. Then you have the Crater Lake newt. Now, the newt is a type of salamander. Big gold eyes, rusty body. This is the rough-skinned newt native to the Pacific Northwest. It is, in its usual form, one of the most toxic creatures on the planet. Not venomous, because it doesn't inject its poison into you, but genuinely poisonous. This is a poisonous newt. If you eat it, if you swallow it, you're dead. It's got enough toxin to take out a mammal the size of an ox. It lives in the water, doesn't really have any other defenses, but its one defense is super effective. There's only one creature in the world that can eat this critter without major problems, and that's the Pacific Northwest garter snake. And even the garter snake takes a mobility hit from eating these newts. So this newt is very successful, except there was a population that somehow or another made it into Crater Lake, a massive caldera at 6,000 feet. These newts somehow managed to get into the caldera. They got all the way up there. And in this caldera, they really had no natural underwater predators. And so, they stopped producing the toxin. So these Crater Lake newts do still produce some toxin, but much, much less than their cousins just a mile away outside of the caldera. I believe the average newt produces 10,000 times as much toxin as these Crater Lake newts. These Crater Lake newts specialize. That toxin is expensive to make biochemically, biologically. And so if they don't have to make it, they don't. And now some crayfish have managed to get into the lake, and they're eating. These crawdads are eating up the newts left and right because the newts don't have the toxin to protect them. Again, the newts over-specialized. Again and again in nature you find this. A generalist, a creature that kind of can get a few calories from everywhere, is almost always going to have better long-term viability than a specialist, a creature that only eats one thing, or a creature that is dependent on one thing. Now, so we don't do any spoilers for this chapter, let's look back at the previous chapters. We were seeing the brainy ballerina fighting Kikoru. The brainy ballerina was clearly, specifically designed by Kaiju number 9 to battle Kikoru. But what's going to happen when the brainy ballerina faces something else, something that's not Kikoru? Because, there are more Defense Force officers. All that specialization, her intense knowledge of Kikoru's psychological weak points, it's not going to do her much good. Like, what if the brainy ballerina had to fight against Reno? I've mentioned that before. Reno could freeze her and just shatter her. So this intense specialization that we've seen in the brainy ballerina is not going to fly with pretty much any other officer. Now, I had a whole video lined up where I and I'm probably still going to do it, even though this chapter... Well, again, no spoilers. I had a whole video lined up where I was going to address the various weaknesses of the officers and how these officers might be attacked by the Kaiju in the upcoming chapters. In the moment, the situation is very, very bad for the Defense Force, but there is a cost for everything. No matter how good your plan is, no matter how good your strategy is, dedicating yourself to that plan, to that strategy, takes away resources and time that you could have given into other plans and strategies. And Kaiju number 9 has poured a ton of resources into generating these very, very specific Kaiju that have very, very specific targets. They are, in fact, specialized. And we've seen that Kaiju number 9 can get exhausted by reviving his Kaiju. And so I don't think it's out of a stretch to imagine that creating these highly specialized, super powerful Kaiju come at a cost to Kaiju number 9. And like I said, in the moment, in the previous chapters, in the battles we've seen with Kikoru, it's paying off. But the moment Kikoru can get back up, the moment that the Defense Force can switch it up and make sure that the brainy ballerina isn't picking at Kikoru's mental weak spots, that cost, that specialization, is going to show the other side of the coin. Remember, panda bears nearly went extinct because they became so specialized they depended on one food source. The flightless island parrots nearly went extinct because they depended on one food source. The Crater Lake newt is actively going extinct because it sacrificed its major defense to specialize for a specific location. So yes, Matsumoto has set up a situation where in the moment Kaiju number 9 has the distinct advantage, but Kaiju number 9 bought that advantage at the cost of extreme specialization. And extreme specialization is really not a good long-term strategy, as is written in the many, many extinct species that dot the fossil graveyards of our planet. So, what do you think, my wonderful viewers? How long is Kaiju number 9 going to ride this wave before the cost of the specialization catches up with them? Hit that like and subscribe button. Go check out a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.